All right, we're back. We are COMP397. That's web game programming in the fall 2017 semester at Centennial. And we are week 8, part 2 of our broadcast. We're going to talk about animations, specifically explosions. All right, so how do we do that? Well, one is we just came off from talking about just regular animations. And if I look back at our core folder, so I go to scripts, and if I look at game, you can see that now I have the animation data like we talked about. So the big explosion animation will happen. I just have to create an object, right, that holds the animation. It's going to be called explosion. So let's write that object. Now this object is a little different. It's a game object, and it has to be a sprite, right? And it's going to appear whenever I hit a cloud. Okay, that's what's going to happen. Now we're going to have some problems. What kind of problems are we going to have if we draw an animation? And I want to draw the animation above the cloud, because if I draw it underneath the cloud, you'll never see it. Okay? How does this work? Well, we have to change the order of where it appears temporarily. So what I want to do is inside the top of my game, I want to go into the actual game itself. So that's into the play scene. So if I go to scenes, I go to my play scene. At the top, I have score, lives, and bullets, and a bullet counter. And you know what? Before my lives label and all that stuff, I'm going to kind of add in the new stuff in here. So I'm going to say private, right? I'm going to call this thing, instead of bullets, it's going to be called explosion, right? And my explosion animation is going to be of type explosion. I don't have this yet. I'm going to write it anyway. And it's going to be objects.explosion, right? So objects.explosion. So this is where it's going to be. That's the type I want. And I want to recycle the explosion, just like I did the bullets. I want to kind of have a bunch of explosions, not just one. I'm going to leave the error here because I want to come back and fix it when I have a chance. All right. I need to, so if that's how it's going to be, that's where it's going to be, I need to add an object. So I'm going to go back to objects and then make a new object. But do I have something that's simple enough that I don't have to kind of rewrite all that whole stuff again, right? And the closest thing I can think of to an object that I want to write is a bullet. The bullet object is like one small object. It has motion and all that stuff. Animation, the explosion won't, right? But it's pretty simple. So I'm going to take the bullet itself. It has all this stuff. I'm going to copy all of it. This is a template. I'm going to go back to my objects. I'm going to make a new file. And we're going to call this explosion.ts. And then paste in the bullet stuff. Change the bullet to explosion. And then in the texture atlas, I want to call this big explosion for now. We're going to change this later on. We might change the file to big explosion. You know, in fact, I think maybe what I did was wrong. I think what I want to do is go in here and change this to big explosion instead. So I'm going to see if I can rename my TX file to big explosion. And also my class, the big explosion. I'll make a big explosion like this. And why is that? Let's get rid of these other little remnants. These are other little files I don't need. I don't need the explosion.js now. And this one. The reason why I'm saying big explosion, because I may want to add in a smaller explosion, right? And it's not going to be scaled. I want a proper explosion that looks different for the enemy planes that I'm going to make later. All right, so there it is. So I got explosion. Okay, reset. Do I need a reset function for the explosion? I mean, maybe I can reset it at minus 1,000, 1,000, because I'm going to have all these explosions ready to go. Instead of instantiating a bunch of explosions again, I'm going to put them on top of the other ones way off screen somewhere, right? This is a good thing. It's a really good thing. Okay, cool. I'm going to still check my bounds, but my explosion, I mean, if it goes out of bounds somehow, right? If my explosion leaves, right? Then, okay, fine. It'll go off screen. I can reset it, but I probably won't. Here's something. I don't want to have my vertical speed. My explosion's not going to move right? So this vertical speed stuff for now is going to be, I'm just going to comment it out. I won't tell you why later when I comment it out. Okay, my update position. Here's my update position function, right? I'm not going to call this on update, so I'm just going to kind of comment that out too. I want to do as little changes as possible. Okay. Okay, cool. So I've got my explosion, and I'm going to play a big explosion. That's it. I'm not going to move, right? I'm ready to change my object. Now, first of all, step one, I make my class inside my file. Step two, I got to add it to my HTML file. So I go, remember, this is what we have to remember, right? So going back to my HTML file, right? Because index.html drives everything else. So inside here, I have my game object, my bullet, somewhere around my bullet, I'm going to copy and paste and add in my explosion. It'll become big explosion too. I'll say big explosion.js. It's got to be in there, or else I'll never connect. I'll never play. This is my HTML file. All right, and then inside my scripts, I have to go to my play scene now, and where it says explosion. So I want to have explosions. I want to make a pool of explosions. That's what I want to make. A bunch of them. How many explosions could I possibly need at once? Maybe 5? If I hit the clouds, kind of thing. Maybe 5 times? Maybe. But not many. So I want to kind of make it so that it is an array of explosion. And it can't be this. It's got to be big explosion. So explosions is an array of big explosions. Now, explosions for us, maybe I should rename that too, right? Because that should be the same thing. So I kind of should probably put something like underscore big explosions, because you know what? I'm going to have more than one of them. So I can't just have, if I was different kind, if I only have one type of explosion, I can just put explosion. But I might have big explosions, small explosions later on. All right, I'm going to scroll down here, and let's think about how I put the bullets together. I had my bullet number, 50, and I had my bullets, an array of bullets, a new array, right? That's what I did. And then I put my bullet counter to 0. I need to count my explosions too, because every time I move to the next explosion, I got to count that I need another one, I need another one, I need another one. So I'm going to have to probably have my counter as well. But for now, I want to know when my explosion is going to be. Now, this is the good thing about doing this ahead. This is where I can solve my problems. Instead of trying to insert explosions between my clouds and my, on top of my clouds, as an example, I'm just going to add them on top of my clouds as it is. So they're going to be on top of the clouds. When I crash into the cloud, my explosion is going to be shown on top of the cloud, and then it's going to go away. I'm going to say this dot underscore. I need instead of the number of bullets, I need a number of explosions. So that I definitely need. So let's go back up here and provision for that. Say private underscore, big explosion num. I'll probably put it in the other order. Sorry. Probably could have copy pasted here, but what the hell? There's a type of number, right? I have a big explosion number. I don't know how much that is. I want to set that up. So my big explosion number, how many do I need? 5, 10? Let's make it 10. I don't think I need that many, but let's make it so that it's that. So big explosion num, right? I'm going to set that to 10. So I have 10 explosions I can use, 10 big explosions. Okay? I don't know how. But that would mean I'd have to die like 10 times from different things all at once on the screen, right? Not going to happen. I might die once, maybe 3 times, then I'll be dead, right? So I won't need more than that. If I have more than 3 deaths, then I'm out. But I'll use 10 just in case I need extras. Better to over-provision. I can always reduce this number later after we do troubleshooting. All right, then this dot underscore big explosions, right? I got to instantiate it, right? Is equal to a new array of objects dot big explosion. That's the syntax. Just like lists and C#. It's exactly the same. Now, they also had not just big explosion later on. This is inside my start method, by the way. But then there's got to be some way of loading or creating my explosions, right? My just like I do with my bullets, right? I can't just instantiate a bunch of like the actual object. This is just instantiating the object. There's no bullets inside. There's no bullets. There's just an array of bullets, right? But I haven't loaded any bullets in there. I got to do that somewhere, right? So if you look through your code here, the one I've given you, right? I want to be able to, kind of create bullets or whatever you want to call them somewhere, right? Like there's got to be some place where I'm creating these bullets. So, for each bullet in bullet update, for each bullet in bullets update, that's what I'm doing here. For each cloud in clouds update, I need to do that update function in here as well. So I'm going to say, well, this dot underscore big explosions, right? This one dot for each, and then for each explosion, lowercase, right? Inside this explosion, then do something, right? Well, what do I want to do? I definitely want to explosion dot update, right? With a capital U, because each explosion has its own update method. Okay. All right, here's in main. So in main, I create my bullets. Here's the bullets. I created 50 bullets according to the bullet number, and then I create the clouds. And now I'm going to create the explosions. So this is where I told you I need a for loop or something like that, right? So for, I'm going to kind of click on for, and I want to say for, we'll say count again. Doesn't matter. Count. Where count is, I'm just reusing count. Where count is less than the array name, the array would be this dot underscore big explosion count, big explosion number dot length. No, how about big explosion number, then count plus plus. And then what I want to do is, down in here, I want to say that this dot underscore big explosions, and I want to kind of put in here that its counts is equal to a new objects dot big explosion. I'm going to pass in this dot underscore texture atlas, because I need to do that with all my objects. That's how I set it up for now anyway. And then once I've done that, I want to add this dot add child, this dot underscore big explosions, the object that I'm actually adding in, count. This adds 10 explosions to the scene ahead of time. That's all it does. I'm taking the explosions, adding to the scene. Okay. Now that they're there, I want to be able to call upon them somehow. Okay. Now this is where it gets a little hairy, right? Because, I mean, I have these explosions, but they have to be triggered. I have to send them back somewhere. They have to have a behavior, right? I can't just like say, well, I'm good to go, right? And then everything's okay. I need to be able to somehow manage the explosions to happen. Now, luckily, I've got a couple things going on here. How do I do my collisions? Let's take a look. So this is my update method, right? And if I go down here, I have a check collision method right here, right? So in my check collision method, this is good. It's all inside my play scene, right? For now, I don't have a collision manager yet. One day when I optimize, I might. For now, no. But it's in here. I can check to see how many I have. So when I collide, and if I collide with my cloud, right, I'm going to make the thunder sound, right? I'm going to reduce my lives, and then I'm going to play my collision. I'm going to actually I'm going to remove or move my collision or instantiate a new explosion, right, object. I'm going to play a new explosion object somewhere else. Guess what, though? My explosion object is continuously playing, right? It's going to keep looping over and over and over and over forever, right? And when I instantiate it, I got to play from start. That's what I got to do, right? It's not the same thing as I did before. I can't just, make my object, right? So first, I got to say this. I got to get the new object somehow, right? I got to get the new object and put it here. I have to take one away from the pool. I only have 10 of them. I got to use one of the objects. Okay. Well, let's see what we did with the bullets. When I do bullet firing, I do something like this. I say that this bullet counter.x and bullet counter.y is equal to the plane.bullet spawn. Because I created a bullet spawn location for the plane. Yeah, remember? You guys don't remember. It's back in the day. It's back weeks ago, right? So I want to do kind of the same thing. I want to say for whatever the counter is. So right now the counter starts at 0, right? And notice I increment the bullet counter when I use them, right? So I want to do kind of the same thing. So almost like this bullet fire thing, right? I want to call a kind of similar method to this called instantiate explosion, or, use explosion, or call explosion, or something like that. Create explosion. And I'll do that. I'll say private, and I'll make a new private method called create big explosion. I'm not really creating it. I'm just really calling it into being. And I'll say that, well, this dot big explosions, right? Big explosions, right? And then this dot underscore. Now this T keeps track of the bullet counter. This is what the bullet counter was there for, remember? And I don't have an explosion counter, but I need one. So I'm going to go back up. I'm just going to show you why I need it. That's all. Make a new object. So at the top, I'll say this dot underscore big explosion counter, which is a number. I forgot to do that for the bullet, right? Is equal to 0. So number. Why is this a problem? Oh, because I never instantiated that kind of thing. So let's go back and fix this problem. I was right, but I need to make the big explosion up here. So the big explosion counter, private underscore big explosion counter. I'm doing it in the wrong place, that's all. I'm instantiating that, and then down here, I initialize it to 0. Okay, so I've got my big explosion counter at 0. And then down when I'm doing this new function, down here I would say this dot underscore big explosion counter, right? That's where it's going to be. And then I need to move the x and y coordinate. So my x and y is equal to this dot underscore plane x and y. So actually, instead of bullet spawn, I'm going to say plane dot position. Plane dot get position. Do I have a get position? Do I even have a plane? Do I have a position at all? Just x and y. Yeah, just x and y. So x, I want to put it right on top of the plane. That's all I'm doing. I'm putting it right on top of the plane, wherever it was. Okay. Now here's a question for you. I'm going to put it out there. Should I put it on top of the plane, or should I put it on top of the cloud? Whatever cloud hit me. What would you do? I'm running into a cloud. The cloud is toxic or something, destroys my plane, right? It's like I'm hitting a wall, right? Should I put the explosion on top of the plane or on top of the cloud? How would you do it? Yeah, that's right. It depends on your game. To me, I like to put it on top of my plane. but it's going to be on top of my plane, which is above my cloud. So it's going to be like bam, because the plane is going to go in through the cloud, right? So it's going to show that there was an explosion. So that's why I'm putting it on top of my plane. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the y-axis. So it's going to put it in the exact position where I'm at. Wherever the plane x and y coordinates are, that's where my new, that's where the explosion is going to appear. Then I'm going to increase my, just like I did with my bullet, I'm going to increase my big explosion counter. Right? I'm going to increase it. And then I want to check to see, I don't need this anymore, this console log. But I'm going to check to see if my bullet, my explosion counter is greater than this bullet number. And then if it is, I'm going to recycle it. So I'm kind of just copy paste. It's almost like I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm just using a pool, right? But instead of a bullet, I'm using explosion. Now there's going to be a difference, which you're going to see in a second. There's explosion, if I'm not wrong, there we go. Okay. The difference is I can't just put my explosion there because it's constantly playing. It's an animation. I want to start it when it appears at the beginning. How do I do this thing? How do I start it at the beginning? Well, I need to use another little function in here inside the documentation for Easel.js. Let's take a look at Easel.js docs again. Let's just get rid of this for a second. So in my Easel.js docs, right, I want to look at a sprite. Now, this is a sprite that I'm dealing with now, not a sprite sheet. The sprite has the ability for me to go to and stop, right? And this is the frame name, right? It's very interesting, right? So whatever the frame name is, I could say go to and stop, la la la, right? There's other ones too. There's go to and play, right? And go to and play has a frame or animation. So it says sets pause to false and plays a specified animation name, named frame or frame number. So I can put a name, a number, something I want in there. So it says, look what it takes. It takes a frame or animation, string or number. That's what it takes. String or number. Okay. How does it count? How does it count? Right? Remember, the way we can set up animations is a little different, right? Because if I look at the documentation again, if I go back, this is just for Sprite, right? The Sprite class itself. For example, whatever the frame name is, I can put the frame name in there, right? Because I can name the frames. Even every frame can be named, right? So if I go to the sprite sheet again, just for a second, and I give some examples of sprite sheets, you can see that I have run, so my animations have different things. So here's my animations, and I have frames like this too, right? So I can do walk and then frames. And here's my animations, right? So I could do this as well, right? So here's my frames, but I could also do this, right? So my frames, and I can name my frames a little differently, right? For example, I could have animations where I stand, run, jump, and so on, right? Which means I could set up a start. I want to go to start, and start means frame 13, as an example, right? So I don't have to remember what start is. I don't know what frame is going to be. But what if I change my sprite sheet again? Might happen, right? I don't know. I mean, it might add more stuff. And then if I specify a specific frame, it's bad, right? And it's got to be the name of the way it works is this, okay? So as soon as I instantiate it, I want to say something like this: this._ big explosions, the actual array, and I want to say that this._ big explosion number, or big explosion counter, sorry, I was right, dot go to and play. Look at this, go to and play. Go to and play or go to and stop. Go to and stop means play the first, whatever that frame is. I only want to play that one frame, right? So I'm going to go to and play, and if I open the file here, it's going to say I need a frame or animation, string or number. Frame or animation, string or number. Right? That's what I need. Something that I got to call. I know it's big explosion. That's what it is, right? I know I'm getting that already. But I need a name or a number. Now, I'll just leave that blank for a second. Let's fix this up. So if I go to my core and I go to game.ts, I know that in my big explosion, I have these frames, right? Here's my frames. And 0 is by chance the first frame. So if I put in 0, it's going to work. Now, as long as my big explosion doesn't change, like somehow I don't rewrite this whole thing, it's going to work. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid that it's going to change. So is it possible, do you think, that I can do something like this? So frames then, right, would be, well, I can probably do something like this, where I take these frames, let's just say, put this inside of here, right? These animations. Is it possible I can do this? Is all I'm saying, right? And then call it something like animations or other frames or whatever. And probably I can. And I want to be able to name this 0 to something else, all right? I don't have that here though, right? I have animations. Animations is right here, right? You see that? And that's where I'm a little bit afraid about, kind of putting it in here like this, because it may not work the way I want, right? So I could name these animations different. Like, for example, I can say frames, and inside frames, I can have something like start, right? And in my start, I can only include 0. Just give me a second. And then I'll say that the rest, the play animation, right, will be the rest, let's say, these other ones. Frames start, frames play, or whatever it is. And the frame start would be from here, like this, frame start, right? And I can make this one start, right? That's what it says to do. See? Run. Here's run. But this is inside this, kind of down a set. And I'm a little bit afraid that this is not going to work. How will I know if it doesn't work? It won't run. It won't play. It won't do anything. It'll just not. It will be 0. It'll be empty. It won't say a thing. So for now, let's not do this. This is what I want to try and do. But I want to just put in, because we know by chance that it's going to be this. Oops. You know by chance 0 is the right frame number. I'm going to put 0 in there. Just by chance. So that means I'm going to go back to my play. And instead of go to and play by itself, I'm going to put to and play 0. That's the frame number, right? By the way, is the frame number relative or is the frame number absolute? I don't know. All right, but this is going to play the animation from the beginning. That's what I want. Okay, cool. So now that I've played the animation, right, what I'm going to do is when it's finished playing, this is going to play forever, right? I need to be able to check to see if it's done playing the animation. That's the other thing I got to check, right? So I play the animation, I move it in place because now I've checked collisions, and this is where it's going to go. Right in here, I'm going to create the animations. I'm going to say this._ create animation, create big explosion, right? This is where it's going to go. But I want to be able to, when I create it, to check each of the animations on update, right? Because I want to update all the animations. The big explosions have to be updated, right? Like so far, I've done main, and here's my big explosions for each explosion update. Okay, so that each explosion has to take care of itself. Now that means that in the big explosion.ts, this is the actual class, right? On update, I need to check to see if my animation is done playing. Does that make sense? Otherwise, I don't know what to do, right? I need to reset when it's done playing, right? So how do I do that? Let's go back to the documentation. So I have my sprite. These are my sprite sheets. There's my sprite. And let's take a look at the methods that come with it. I'm going to go to the index. The index is a great place to look to see what all the methods are. So I've got my current animation frame, right? I can look at my frame rate. These are all my properties. And these are my methods. Go to and play, go to and stop, has event listener, right? Is visible, play, remove, set. Can you see anything in here that will, that we know it's done playing? Is there something like that? Some kind of event listener or whatever, right? Well, and we may have to use our friend Google for this one. What was that? Go to and stop. I know that, but that go to and stop doesn't do the same thing. Go to and stop, it says, sets pause to true and seeks to the specified animation name, named frame or frame number, and then stops. Sorry? Sorry, where is it? In my index? Where is it? Yes. And then animation end, right? On animation end. Okay, what is this? So it says defined, right? In animation 184, since available since 0.6. Always check, because now we've updated. We're not using the latest version. Always check to see if the version is correct. Our version is version 0.8, so we're okay, right? But available since 0.6, it says dispatched when an animation reaches its ends, right? Available event payload, target object, target type string, and so on. So I can use this. I can say on animation end, then reset, right? And it's got to be an event handler. And I have to bind it, right? Because this animation is going to be bound for each of the controls. And I have to unbind. Remember we did that? No, not now. Yes, I know you're right, but no, I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm very afraid, right? Once we start going that line, but I need to. Now here, question: do I need to create a event listener, and do I have to remove my event listener after? I mean, I'm going to do cleanup, right? Remember I talked about cleanup? Because otherwise, these things are going to be okay. So I go from one level to the other. Think about this now. Not now, but in the future, we're going to have multiple levels. Only have one level right now. And I have a bunch of these explosions hanging off at -1,000, way off screen. That's where the reset position is, right? Like the bullets. And I want to get rid of them. And I do, because when I kill all the children, I remove all children. I remove all the things too, but guess what? All those event handlers, they're still gone. They haven't been killed. I've used event handler, you know, if you want to talk about threads, I've used an event thread, and I'm holding it there, waiting. It's always listening, as long as my application is running. And if I go back to that level multiple times, I'm going to have multiple of these threads hanging out. Now, for our little game, it's not going to matter. But in an enterprise level application, you want to care about this stuff. And the stuff that I want to teach you is the stuff that you can carry forward into other things, not just games, right? So what do? How do we get rid of them? Well, we know that we're going to create an event handler, and we want to turn it off somehow. But we need to be able to refer to it, the event, right, later on. Now, for today, I'm not going to do it because it requires way more coding than I even care to do right now, right? Like tons of stuff. It's not easy. But, well, it's not that hard. It's just it takes a lot of stuff, and I have to explain it all in an off time. But what I can do instead inside the constructor or inside the start method, right, wherever I instantiate the object itself, I can call the on add event listener. Doesn't matter where, right? It resets, and what I'm going to say is the following: this dot on, and then I can look at the type of strings, and the one is like I looked at, which is animation end. That's the event type. on animation end, and then the listener, all right? Now, curiously, I probably want to have to do this again. So I'm going to write an inline function, right? Because I don't have to write anything else like this, right? So remember that I can write the keyword function, right? Like this is the old school way of doing it. Or the new way of doing it is how I can write like this, where I have these brackets, and then I have this, right? So-called lambda expression, right? Or the new TypeScript way of doing it. All right, so inside my little animation end, I'm going to say, well, animation end reset, right? Now, I don't have to check in on every frame. It should update itself. Let me say that again. Should update itself. Don't know if it's going to update itself, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to call this reset as well, right? It just sets it up once. Now, curious, this reset. Does this animation have access to this reset, this event handler? That's the challenge we talked about before with that whole binding and unbinding crapola, right? Because remember, we did this inside of our play state, right? In our play state, way at the top, when we instantiated, we did this. This dot bullet fire equals equal to this dot bullet fire dot bind dot this, right? We did this. And bullet fire itself, right? Bullet fire is this, right? We bound it. And we said that window.add event listener, we bound it to the window, add event listener, mouse down, this dot bullet fire. And this way what happens is it can access these bullets and all that kind of stuff. Remember? That was the problem. And that's what I'm worried about, where we bind and unbind, right? So I may have to do the same thing. We may not be able to reset anything. We'll see that in a second when we try it. Okay, I think we're ready, finally, to try it out and see what happens, right? It may mess up, but this is what it is. This is the great stuff about this stuff, right? It's all, you know, fun. So light-server, and it runs so far. This is where it can crash if I press start. Okay. Let's do it again.
Yay.
Okay, so what do you see happening, guys? Right? Right? So that's weird. And that's what I'm saying. You don't know what the effect is going to be. I mean, I'm using somebody else's API documentation. I'm looking at it. Looks right. This didn't work. Right? Didn't work. Kept on looping forever. This animation and stuff. I know. But stop something does something else altogether, right? Stops. This does oh, you mean like animation stop? No. There's these are the ones. Click, double click, mouse down, all these other ones. These are the events. I want to make an event, right? Because there's no way I can figure out when this stuff works, right? But we know it's binding and unbinding. That's the problem. And one thing to check, and which I didn't do, by the way, was, let me just redo that for a second. Sorry. One thing I should do is check to see what my log tells me. Sorry. So let's start it. No errors. Okay, so we got no errors. I just wanted to see what it said, right? Okay. I'm going to start printing values now. All right, because we need to know what's doing. Like troubleshooting on with this stuff. I'm going to keep this running. Troubleshooting with this stuff is a little difficult because we don't know, you know, this. Now go to and play 0. What if I just went to not do this for a second? I just want to see what the difference is. But if I just don't, I move it in there, right? What happens? It should loop, right? It should just loop a bunch of times, but we might catch it in the middle. This is what I don't want, right? I want to play from a certain part. Okay. So start. See what I'm talking about? The position is good. The looping is okay. But looping forever is not okay. Okay, so that's the problem. Let's go back. And now what we're going to do is this. Inside of my create big explosion thing, when my start method, right, where I told it to bind my explosion, right? Actually, I did it here. In my big explosion, I made this thing, animation end. I called reset. Let's see if I get there, first of all. So console.log. I'll make it console.info instead of .log, so it's blue. And we'll say something like animation ended, right? And it restarted, actually. It loops forever. Okay, cool, right? Console, animation ends, loops, and then we'll reset. Let's see what we get to this point, if we can just do this. If we ever get to that point. All right, so start.
Yay.
Are we getting there? Never. That's the answer. It's never done it. And it's really fast. It's way too fast. It should be way slower than that, like 0.25 speed again, because it's doing it 60 frames per second, right? So we can go back. That's in the core files here. We're almost done, guys. Sorry, I know I'm trying to do this as best I can. But it's always difficult, again, like when you're using somebody else's stuff. So 0.25, right? That's the animation speed for the big explosion, just like the frame rate for the plane. Now we can see it a little bit better. That's a little bit more like it, right? Right?
Yay.
If I go to and stop, just to show you that, right? So you said what about go to and stop, Tom? You said, right? So if I went to my play and inside where I call the animation, this part right here, this part, let's just do this for a second. And I want to show you what go to and stop does. So go to and stop. And I put it at 0. Right? That's actual, you know what we found out? This is absolute frames. That's what it is. Go to and stop. Okay. And that's interesting that I can play all the other ones too, somehow. Right? So this gives us a hint of what it does. Okay, so let's see if it just plays the first one now. Right? Well, if that's true, then maybe what we should do is big explosion. No, big explosion. What if it does that? Go to and play. Go to and play a big explosion. Let's just see what that does. So big explosion, remember, is the name of, when I go back to game.ts, it's called big explosion, right? So I'm calling this animation from the beginning. That might be the right thing to do. All right, so let's try it out. That's cool.
Yay.
And it starts from the beginning, which I wanted.
Yay.
But it never ends. It never ends. I don't want this thing to loop. Is there something in here if I don't want the animation to loop somehow, right? So it displays a frame sequence from a sprite sheet, right? Combined to single image, for example, an animation consisting of 8 100 by 100, and even sequence animations. Okay, cool. It does have a stop property, but I need to call it when it's done. How do I know? Right, that's what I'm trying to tell you. I don't know. Things are going, right? And it's playing, the timing is the issue. So can we find something that enables us to stop, when we play? When we instantiate this thing, and this is in the sprite class itself. So the sprite class is going to stop, right, when we want it to. Stop just, again, stops the animation, right? So if I go to stop, it says that stop playing and running animation. The sprite will play if go to and play is called. Note that go to and play or play will resume the playback, right? So we can stop the animation, no problem, right? But we want to stop when it reaches frame 8 or frame 7. So play the animation, right? And when it gets to frame 7, I want to know what frame it is. So is there a get current frame? That we can do, right? Maybe there's some kind of get current frame animation for this thing. And that's where we have hints of what to do, right? So here, current animation frame, right? Here's current animation frame. All right, current animation frame specifies the current frame index within the current playing animation. When playing normally, this will increase from 0 to n-1, where n is the number of frames in the current animation. Hey, this could be non-integer value if using time-based playback. Okay, let's print out the current animation frame. All right, you see where I'm going with this, right? If I can find out that it's frame 7, because I know my animations only have 7 frames, then I stop. Right? So let's see if that's true. So I'll say console.log, and I'll say this._ big explosion. Actually, let's just do one of these because I'm lazy. I'm looking for this is the actual sprite itself. That's why I'm doing it, right? So you guys can see, right? Dot current animation frame. Current animation frame. I'm going to just print that out. And we should get a number in there, right? Cool. We're good. Go back and play.
Yay. Yay.
Well, that's not good. No, it's 0. Because 0 is the current animation frame. That's the animation frame that's starting to play, right? It doesn't keep track of it every frame, but only because, guess what? When I create the big explosion, I do this, but I want to do this, right, every frame, which means every on update. This is just happening when I create the explosion. I only do that once. But what I really want to do is I want to go to my update function. Come on, update function. There it is. Here it is, my update function. And as I update each of my explosions, I want to do that with the explosion. I want to explosion dot, and then I want to the animation frame. Explosion dot current animation frame. I want to know what that is for each of the explosions. I want to console.log that out. Okay, and this will give me a hint. Does it work properly? So it's correct. I'm seeing this, right? I'm doing this properly. This is right because the 0th animation is playing. So I'm getting a hint of how the animation system is working here, right? Okay, let's try this again. Okay, lots of animations going on.
Yay. Yay. Yay.
Okay, let's analyze. We got some data, and it's giving me 6.75s. What the heck? Well, hold on a second. So we went from way at the beginning, when we started playing this thing, we were way up here. It was 0, 0.25, 0.5, 0.75, 1, 1.25, 1.5, 1.752. And it kept on counting. And then it came to 0 again. So these 8 frames, it came to 0 again. And then it started over again at 0. So what is this doing? Right? So it's counting. And you know why this is happening, right? Because I've instantiated these animations. Guess where? way out in 1,000 miles away, right? At negative 1,000. So even when they're not showing, these 10 animations, look, there's 10 of them, and they're happening all at the same time, right? And they're all playing simultaneously, these explosions, right? Whatever they are, right? And they're being played because they got instantiated all together at the same time, way out in left field, in 1,000 minus 1,000, right? And that's what's happening. So we are playing these things, and there's 8 frames, right? Or in total, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then it does it again, because these are playing for every, there's 60 frames a second, and it's going to keep playing this a bunch of times, right? So guess what I need to do? I need to look at the 8th frame, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. And if the frame count, my friends, is divisible by 2, right? We reset. Always reset if the frame count is divisible by 2, right? Now that means that the ones are way over in 1,000. They're resetting all the time. They keep on moving them back, moving themselves back to that place. But who cares, right? All right, that's really, really good. So I don't need to do this anymore. Actually, big explosion is fine because it'll reset it to the exact beginning. This is good. I definitely don't want to do this console log. This is crazy, right? Right? And inside my explosion itself, this explosion thing itself, right? In its own update function, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to say that if this dot current animation frame, right, %2 is equal to 0. Understand what I'm doing there? If the current animation frame divided by 2 has a remainder of 0, that's what I'm saying here. That means it's even numbers, every 2, 2, 4, 6, 8, right? If it's divided by 0, and including the 0th frame, though, reset. Because 0 divided by 0 would probably, or 0 divided by 2 would have a 0 remainder. Yeah, well, let's see what it does, right? Then I'll say this dot underscore reset. It might work. We have to exclude 0. Right? We have to exclude 0. Yeah, let's see what happens, right? So this is when it resets. It kind of resets every one of those, right? Because we don't want to see it on the screen, right? So hello. It's just resetting. It's resetting right away, right? Because of 0, right? So how do we do that? If this current frame is 2 is equal to 0, right? And first of all, if it's not equal to 0, so if this dot current animation frame is not equal to 0, and just make this a compound statement. That's the first thing we check. Notice I put that first because if it's equal to 0, we don't want to even check, right? This way. So if the current animation frame is not equal to 0, and this current animation frame is divisible by 2, and it's equal to 0, the remainder is no remainder, then reset. So now I won't do it for the 0th case.
Yay.
Huh? Huh? All right. Now we're going to make it longer. It's too long. Well, uh-oh. What if we change it to longer? Does that mean it's still divisible by 2? Oh, crap. It's too short. Like, I mean, it's there. I mean, I guess it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, right? Otherwise, I'm gonna have to go back and change I gotta repoll, see what the ratio is for my animation. So I'm going at 0.25. If I change it to 0.2, it would go 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, 1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 1.8. I don't know what it would get to. I don't think it would get to 2, right? Because you got to get it's only 8 steps. 0.2, 0.4, so sorry, 0, 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, right? 1, and then 1.2, look, there's 7, 1.4, I'd have to divide by 1.4 if I went to 0.2.
I think there is so where you define the frame for the animation.
Yep.
2 animations. One of the animations first 7 frames.
Yes.
And the other one, the last frame. Blank
The empty.
sprite.
Yeah.
And just make a blank sprite the default state. Whenever you hit something, plays another animation, define that animation to go back to the previous one.
Okay. I like your thinking, right? Because what Eddie's saying is we have control, right? And he's right. If we think about it, this is setting us up to have a lot more control than we think, right? So if you go back to this, sure, we have a big explosion that does all this, right? But 7 can be made into its own animation, right? Like empty explosion or clear explosion, whatever you want to call it, right? So if I do that, this is the great thing about using this sprite sheet. It's all one big list. If I call this clear explosion, right? Actually, it doesn't matter whether it's a big explosion or a small explosion. It just clears it. Because even if it's a small explosion, it's big enough that it'll clear it up, right? And we say the clear explosion is equal to, from a frames perspective, so we'll say frames, and we'll say it's frame number 7. That's what you're saying. Right? We don't need a frame count because it's, speed, because it's only going to play one frame. There we go. We've made a virtual object from the frames we have. Does that make sense? We don't have to make a new one. We already have it. It's that one frame that's empty, right?
I think there's a property that uses in data explosion. Make it automatically go to clear.
Next is clear. Next, go to there. So after it's done, don't play it, actually. We shouldn't play this, right? You just go there. Like, in other words, play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll say next. That's very nice. Next, and then say is equal to clear explosion. That's what he's saying. So when it's done, when you do this, then clear the explosion. And then don't loop, because now it's going to stay here like this forever. Which means we don't need to reset. Which means we don't need to count frames. That's the hack. Right, let's see if actually it's not a hack. That's how it should be used. Let's see if that's true though. So let's to test this, we have to change our structure a little bit. So we're going to go back to big explosion, and this thing right here, we're just going to comment out. We know that this won't work, right? We'll just do one of these, right? And that's removing the hack, right? And then we won't have to poll for the current frame. It'll just remove itself. So actually, when we set our animations, we sent them over there. They play 0, and now they're going to be more random too, because right now they're playing all at the same time, every one of them, right? They're all playing at the same time. This way, when we call them back into life, they'll play from the beginning, right? They'll finish. They'll go back to reset, right? So we will still want to reset them. We still want to reset them, but let's see what happens. They'll hang out there, but they'll be blank. Yeah, well, let's see.
Yay.
Very good. Now it's still there.
Yay.
Didn't reset. Didn't reset. Just stayed there, right? So now we got to figure out when it goes there. Got to reset it, right? Because we got to still reset it at the end, right? So when do we reset that? How do we reset the frames? That's the problem. Like, it works. What you said is correct, right? Because what we're saying is, hey, when it's done, fine, go to the next animation and reset, right? But basically, we still need to somehow be able to reset the actual explosion off screen somewhere, right? I mean, theoretically, we don't, because it's blank. Because it's blank, right? So you can't see it. It's just invisible. It's on screen. It's not up negative 1,000. It's on screen, but you can't see it. It's transparent. It's fully transparent. That's what's all that's happening. You just can't see it. And then when you call it again, it'll just go to whatever the new place where you need it to be, which is perfectly fine, actually. So actually, this is okay.
Yeah, so it's really up to how the API that works.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, we know that it's going to be fine. So actually, we just leave it the way it is. We don't have to even reset it. Because if we reset it, it doesn't matter. We reset it the first time because we don't want it to play for the first time. We just put it on the side somewhere. And then when we're done, it goes back, and it's on our screen somewhere, but we can't see it. Which is perfect. It's a good solution. A hack. That's hacky. But otherwise, it's okay. It works. All right. I think we've accomplished our goals for today. We did a bunch of stuff. Let me just do a couple things. One, let's test it one more time. So I'm going to go back and play MailPilot one more time. And this time I'll win. Right? Oh.
Yay.
That was bad luck.
Yay. 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 Yay.
I won. Oh, yeah, I won. But you see that's pretty good, right? We got a good explosion. We got some simple animation for the plane, right? And guys and girls, this gives you a hint of what to do for your games when it comes to animations, right? Because at the end of the day, you could put whatever complex animations you want together with this system, right? And this isn't, by the way, using anything like tweening or anything like that. Tween.js, we haven't even got there yet. What it allows you to do is actually do ease in and out, smooth animation frames like that, which we don't have a use for right now. But it's kind of neat. If you want to grow or shrink or make a menu item change shape or whatever, you can use Tween.js to do that. So it's quite powerful. But now we're good. So let's go back and put this up on GitHub. But otherwise, I'll do this. I'll end the recording, and I'll put it up on GitHub, and then I'll see you guys next week. Remember, next week, you're presenting, so be ready to present. Okay? And that's it for me.